Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And we are talking about the Jackson Browne album, Downhill from Everywhere. I just happened across this at the library the other day, and this is Jackson Browne's most recent record. I like plenty of his stuff. I've seen him in concert before. Figured this would be a good time. And certainly the very beginning of it was. So I would say the first two tracks on this album, Still Looking for Something and My Cleveland Heart, are absolutely going to enter the canon of Jackson Browne classics. I hope these are ones he plays regularly in his concerts. Still Looking for Something, it just has that timeless Jackson Browne feel. He said in interviews he's aware he's in his 70s. He thinks of himself as old, but this song says, you know, he may be aware of his age, but that doesn't mean he still can't sing pretty well and still can't sing a poppy song. I think it's interesting. I just did a video on Townes Van Zandt and how there are all these sort of meandery, sad songs about it, how it's hard to put your finger on what you're searching for. And what I think is so cool about this first song is that Jackson Browne basically writes the same thing, but he makes it sound upbeat and musically catchy. He says, if all I find is freedom, it's all right. So the same kind of emptiness of Townes Van Zandt songs, but coming from a much more optimistic place. I also like that he manages to give this song that sort of catchy, uplifting feel, no matter whether the lyric falls on a major chord or a minor chord. So it has different sounding catchy parts. So amazing first song on here. The next song is called My Cleveland Heart. I feel like this is both a very similar and a kind of opposite song to track one. So it's not about the city of Cleveland. It's about this laboratory that develops mechanical hearts. And Jackson Browne, I believe, saw a billboard for it. He's not someone who necessarily knows the science of it, but he found some inspiration. So whereas the first song is like actually trying to find optimism from your day-to-day living, My Cleveland Heart is the other path to optimism, believing that there's some futuristic solution where you don't have to worry about the problem of aging. You don't have to be a confident old man. You can be this ageless robot. The music video for this one famously featured a cameo from Phoebe Bridgers, which I think was widely interpreted as a great singer-songwriter from a past generation, passing things down to a great singer-songwriter of this contemporary generation. And Jackson Browne has said in interviews about this record that he's very inspired. He feels like for the first time in a long time, the young generation is really into politics and activism. But, you know, even if that doesn't all pan out, maybe we'll build robotic hearts and we'll all be okay. Track number 3 changes the feel quite a bit. It's more of a mellow sound, and I would say it's an acquired taste, but I feel like I've acquired that taste because it's called Minutes to Downtown, and it sounds a bit like an older Jackson Browne song, both in terms of the instruments used, the speed of it, and the fact that it's a Los Angeles song. This one comes from a more pessimistic place. It sort of acknowledges that age is real, references Jackson Browne having feelings for someone possibly romantic, who's younger and not feeling like they can really connect because of that difference, feeling pessimistic, but then remembering, no, I've still got this energy. I'm still in LA. I'm still by the coast. Just because I'm quote unquote old does not mean I cannot continue to live a happy and inspired life. Track number 4 is called A Human Touch. It's a duet with Leslie Mendelson. The lyrics to this one are pretty simple. I think they try and sort of capture the way human mood cycles generally work. We might have anxieties about all kinds of things. How do we overcome those anxieties? Not necessarily coming up with the perfect solutions to directly address them, but just connecting with people, talking with them, hugging with them, knowing we are not alone in whatever our suffering may be. Track number 5 on the record is called Love is Love. And here we have a kind of shift. So the first 4 tracks on the record, I feel like, are Jackson Browne dealing with internal emotions in a mostly apolitical way, what it's like to be old, what it's like to be optimistic, what it's like to be pessimistic. Human Touch is arguably the opposite of My Cleveland Heart, because one is about robotic body parts, one is about real human connection. But after this sort of first emotional introspective set about optimism and pessimism, we get a line of what to varying degrees are political songs. So Love is Love was originally written for a charity record meant to raise money for Haiti. And if you just listen to it at first, you might think it's a sort of easy listening, enjoy the Caribbean kind of song. But Jackson Browne does at least force us to think a little bit. He says, yes, for some people, the island is vacation land, but for some people, islands are cities. It's where real people live. He doesn't get too gritty, though, because he talks about these folk sayings that I guess are from Haiti, love is love no matter what the situation, or from hope springs light. So it's an interesting juxtaposition of just being happy that tropical places exist and trying to remember that not everyone in tropical places has that tropical feeling all the time, but they're not just cases of constant tragedy. People find happiness and are proud of their cultures in those places. So the song doesn't necessarily take too strong of a line because I feel like it has a lot of purposes. It's both supposed to be a safe charity single, and I think Jackson Browne is a more critical thinking political mind. The next song on the record is the title track, Downhill from Everywhere. This is a kind of bluesy or cool or detached cool kind of rock song where basically Jackson Browne is going through a list of various things that are wrong with the world, from ICE, the deportation officials in the United States, to school shootings, to climate change. So on the one hand, Jackson Browne is very committed to still being a protest singer, but I feel like despite some good efforts in the song, a nice little instrumental bridge at the one point, bringing in some harmony vocals, and I feel like this could be a fun song visually, make a music video with someone skateboarding down some wacky dystopian hill. It does show how hard it is to have your protest songs be your best songs, because I mean, you want to sing about all the injustice in the world, but how do you frame that? How do you frame that artistically? I guess Jackson Browne is a bit of a concept. He creates this hill of pain, but at the end of the day, this song kind of feels like a list. It doesn't have the vivacity of a Still Looking for Something or a My Cleveland Heart. So it's a solid song, but this speaks to how even the best of the singer-songwriters, when it comes to creating really compelling political art, there's a bit of a challenge. The next song on the record is called The Dreamer. So it tells the story of an undocumented person coming to the United States and then facing deportation. It's what you'd expect it to be as a song. There are no surprises. Again, I'm glad Jackson Browne is speaking to this issue.
Interestingly, the middle verse is a bit more abstract and poetic, as is the Spanish language chorus. So there might be a bit of a language barrier for me, but I also feel like we can still infer from this that maybe to make a protest song sound a bit better and not forced, you maybe focus first on those poetic elements and not on jumping right into your message, because that way it sounds more like a protest song and not protest crammed into a song.
He has a bit more luck with the next political song on the record, Until Justice is Real. This one strings together various issues from the non-reliability of the corporate media to money and politics, but it also connects things back to the more personal set at the beginning of the record, asking, what are we doing here just watching all this stuff? I think maybe this one has a bit more hit potential. It sounds kind of like a 1980s Jackson Browne rocker, and it brings in some harmony singing that kind of reminds me a bit of Buffalo Springfield's For What It's Worth. And then finally, we get a song called A Little Soon to Say that wraps it all together, where Jackson Browne really tries to connect the personal and the political. Jackson Browne, in fact, said when he's interviewed about this, what's more personal than your political beliefs? And your sense of satisfaction with your life, whether you've served your purpose well, whether you can still feel young despite technically being old, might all come down to, do you feel like you can act on those values? Now, does he necessarily have anything brilliant to say in this track to tie it all together? Not quite, but I think it's good at least that he's meditating on it. And I kind of appreciated the fact that he does have a track that ties together these personal and political songs. Now, for better or for worse, A Little Soon to Say is not actually the last song on the album. We finally get a song for Barcelona. This one is certainly catchy enough, and there might be some quite interesting things in there. It talks about Jackson Browne needing to escape from rock and roll into this city, and I feel like the city of Barcelona becomes bigger than Jackson Browne's personal voice in this one. So on the one hand, it's enjoyable enough to listen to, but it also at the same time kind of feels like just a tourism ad. We've talked about the city of architecture and football, and those things might all mean a lot to Jackson Browne. Maybe he's a big architecture fan. Maybe he's a fan of Barcelona FC or European soccer in general. I don't know. But I guess my one problem with that last song, and why I would have put it a different place on the record rather than having it be the concluding track, is it's kind of like, well, a lot of people might have written this song about Barcelona and said the exact same thing. whereas A Little Soon to Say truly feels like it ties the whole record together. So as far as records go, for people who've had long careers and put out so much great material already, this album starts amazingly strong, Still Looking for Something, My Cleveland Heart, and then I like the ambition in the rest of it, and I like that Jackson Browne tries to tie together thematically. At the same time, the challenge of being a songwriter and wanting to be a political songwriter is that I often feel like artistic ideas just sort of come to you and they come to you fully formed. And often the sort of catchy song that pops into your head might not be the deepest thing. It might be a relatively simple one, like Still Looking for Something. So while on the one hand, it's good that Jackson Browne is writing songs like The Dreamer, it's clear that those are songs he wants to write, whereas the songs that the musical gods really blessed him with were Still Looking for Something and My Cleveland Heart. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.